Hey everybody, welcome back, and today we are taking a look at the latest issue of Tactics and Strategy magazine from Tactics and Strategy, Polish game company. It's their 41st issue. This is a in-house magazine that they publish about 3 or 4 times a year. And this is actually the second issue that's been printed in English, so the English audience can start having a chance to take a look at the magazine and see what they're doing over in Poland. So just wanted to go over it a little bit. Take a look. There are 3 games that are highlighted with articles in it, and there is a ton of scenarios in here. So let's go ahead and take a look at some of this stuff. First thing we have is an article. Some battles in Poland in 1939, which is also the basis for one of the games included. So we got some really nice maps here, and several pages of articles, advertisements. And then we start getting into the actual scenarios themselves. Now, these games are not self-contained. You actually have to own the base games, the base box games. And this one specifically is for the his company and battalion level, which is the WB... I want to say WB95. I may be wrong on that. I am probably wrong on that. It's the Battles of the World War II system. So here's one scenario for the 14th of September, or B35. There it is. It says B35 system. And then you actually have 2 more scenarios covering the different days. And then we go into a scenario for the B35 system using the actual base game set and the maps from that. And another scenario for the B35 system using previous maps. Final Push, which is another scenario using maps from the base game. And all the unit, he tracks step losses for a lot of the rule systems a little bit separately than other games, which is just hit, flip over, and then remove. A lot of the games that S&T puts out actually track step losses with separate record sheets, and so you have to copy these out so you can keep track. WIMS, here's a scenario for the medieval system. Actually, I think you need the Buck Burn box set for that to use the map from that one. We have a article on the modern day philosophies behind Polish land-based deterrence against what could be their biggest potential enemies in the future, Russia. Not really a surprise there. So this is a good 4-page article on that. And then we get into some more scenarios for another game system of his, Battles of the 21st Century. This is actually what the highlight of the issue is. Ossetia, 2008-2015. And I know I probably said that wrong. I apologize for my Eastern European listeners. I'm just a dumb American who can't understand and make out how to say Eastern European names. So I apologize. Basically, it was for the American or Europe or Western European audience who may not know, Ossetia is a little province state of Georgia. And when Georgia declared its independence, this province was mostly backed by the the Russians, and kind of had a little civil war, and the Russians stepped in and basically helped this province kind of secede from Georgia. And again, I would like to point out this is Georgia in Eastern Europe, not the American Georgia, because I know some people may not actually be able to make that connection. And basically, the Russians have been violating UN policy since 2008 by keeping troops in there and all that other good stuff. But this is some of the looks at the actions there in the 2008 fight. And then there's another scenario at the same time period, 2008. And again, you have the step record losses for the games. And then there is a hypothetical scenario set in modern day, but this scenario also assumes that NATO would be supporting Georgia and dealing with the Russians in Ossetia. Then it goes into a really good article on the Soviet SS-26 ballistic missile system. And this is actually, if you're a fan of weapon systems and reading about operational deployments and, you know, just all that kind of good stuff, this is actually a damn good article. It's about, what, 8-10 pages long, just covering this single weapon system. Then we go into Kiev, 1941. Now, this is another scenario. This is for the K2 system, which is their area operational game, which is a system I really, really like. I don't have Ukraine 1941, which is this is based on, but this is a smaller scenario using the maps and counters, just focusing on the fight for Kiev. So that's kind of cool. So if you don't want to play the full campaign for the Ukraine, there's a smaller scenario for it. And then we have some very interesting scenarios for the Napoleonic system that take place in 1866, and it's the Austro-Prussian War. And yes, you heard that right, 1866. This is post-American Civil War era. There are a lot of different rules that you have to change from the base Napoleon. Well, not a lot, but there are some rules from the base Napoleonic system that you do have to change because infantry squares had gone out of style by that period, and the Prussians actually were using breech-loading rifles, and where the Austrians were using still muzzle loaders. And if anybody who's a student of military history, you can imagine how well that went for the Austrians. It didn't. And then there's another scenario for the Austrian-Prussian War. And then Kursk 43, the WB95 series, which is probably one of my favorite systems from his. Using the Kursk 43, there's a new scenario for that map. And then it gets into what I think... Oh, did I miss a page? I missed a page. A couple more scenarios for the B-35, and then a scenario for Ossetia, which requires one of the base games. And then it gets into what I think was probably one of the coolest articles. It goes over the Israeli Defense Force Museum. And they're just basically going over everything that's there and everything that's highlighted. And then you've got a little article on some Roman reenactors, which I also thought was really damn cool. We don't see a lot of this in the States. Mainly in the States, we have American Civil War reenactors or World War II reenactors. But I can imagine over in Europe how the more Middle Ages and pre-Middle Ages ancients reenactors tend to be a little bit more popular. And then you have some editor's notes. And then you've got a scenario for War of Ships. Now, War of Ships was actually a self-contained game that came out in issue 40. It had all the rules for everything and had all the counters in for it. And this is a new scenario for that, so I thought that was pretty cool. And there is... here we go. If you're a fan of Advanced Squad Leader like I am, Christoph, one of the writers for the magazine, is actually a Squad Leader player. An ASL player, and he has been doing a couple scenarios for each issue here for a while. These are starter kit scenarios, so we're trying to get Chris to move up to the full ASL rules, but he's having troubles finding opponents and getting the full rules in Polish over there. So you know, baby steps. So we do have at least some starter kit scenarios. Really nice look. I haven't got a chance to break out Vaseline and push some counters around on these, but I do want to. Then some final advertisements, and then we're done with the magazine. So that's the magazine itself. So let's take a look at the counter sheets. Now, the counter sheets, pretty much all the scenarios for the individual games that he announces in the magazines usually come completely self-contained. I mean, you've got all the counters you need to play, with the exception of the administrative counters. If you've got any of the base games, then you've got the administrative counters right there. So let's go ahead and see if we can zoom in a little bit and take a look at... Now, this is for the WB35 system. This is the counters needed for the 1939 Polish versus German scenario. And these are very, very thin cardstock, and you do have to cut them and mount them yourself. So basically, this is the back side of the counters. This is the front side. You cut it, put the two together, glue it. You know, I know there's a lot of people out there that have issues with that. I don't have issues with it. We used to do it a hell of a lot back in the 70s. Does it kind of suck that these aren't die cut? Yeah, but by the same token, it's not that big a deal to me. So those are those counters. And then we look into the counters for the Ossetia scenario. And now the one thing I've always liked about the Battles of the World War, or Battles of the 21st Century systems, that uses all NATO insignias and NATO markers. And being ex-military, I'm especially for modern day engagements, I am more comfortable using NATO terminology and NATO symbology. I don't know why. In World War II, I can't stand it. In World War II, I need to have, all right, give me some type of iconography. Give me a picture of a tank or something. But for moderns, I really do appreciate the NATO symbology. Again, it's something you're going to have to cut and mount because, you know, the back sides of the counters and the front sides of the counters. And then we have a few more counters for the Battles of the 21st Century. A lot more. And then we get into a bunch of the I believe those are I think those are the Prussians. This is for the Napoleonics scenarios in here. And again, yes, you do have to cut them and mount them back to back. And then here's some more Prussians and Austrians. And, you know, there's a part of me that says I should probably know the color-wise, but I just don't. So I apologize in advance because I know there are people out there screaming, "Oh, you idiot, that's such and such." And I do that all the time with his games because my knowledge of Eastern European military history is a bit lacking. So I apologize. So let's take a look at some of the maps. Now here you got a really, really, really tiny map. This is for one of the Austrian-Prussian war scenarios. You know, nice, quick, probably take you hour and a half tops to play. One scenario is done on this map. This is for the B-35 1939 scenario, Germans versus Poles, and this map is done for all the scenarios, and pretty much the entire fighting all focuses around the capturing of that village and establishing the bridgehead across. But it's really, really pretty maps. I've always loved, you know, the way his maps look. And this one is much bigger. This is for the Austrian-Prussian War one. And all the scenarios, except for that one that I showed you, are done on this map. Now, I'll be honest, the concept of an 1866 fight with Austrian muzzleloaders versus Prussian breech blocks loading weapons, that tickles my historical fancy, and this one will probably be getting on the table at some point. When, not sure. I've got about a dozen other games I need to do, but again, very nice map. All the scenarios played out on that. And then we've got the monster. This is for the Odessa. This is for, and if I could learn to not turn the camera off while I'm trying to get a video. So here we are with the big map for the Battles of the 21st Century. Got a lot of rivers, a lot of forests, just a pretty map. Going all the way up into the mountains up here. So all the scenarios are done on this map. And again, all the counters needed, with the exception of the administrative counters, needed to play the scenarios are actually in the magazine itself. So there we have it. A quick look at TNS's Tactics and Strategy magazine, issue number 41 in English. I seem to have been neglecting to put the information on how to contact the company in my show notes. So as soon as I get done editing this and throw it up on the web, we're going to make sure I actually do put the contact information. So if you're interested in ordering it, now I think this issue, the issues run $6 to $8, but shipping from Poland is about $12. So, but it's like $12 for like 3 or 4 issues. So if you want to order a bunch of back issues, that's usually what I do, as I just order, you know, like 3 issues at once. It kind of saves on shipping because, hey, I get the same amount for 3 as I would for 1. So there we have it. I hope everybody enjoyed, and I will see everybody next episode.